If you still suppress your experience of anger, you will not be able to connect with its gifts. Similarly, if you act your anger out, that is to say, if you react to the anger habitually as you have been doing it before for years or decades, then you will not be able to connect to its gifts.
I don't like to argue, so I say nothing and fume for days.
How do I set boundaries without sounding like a jerk?
I hate the idea that I might accidentally offend somebody, so sometimes I'd just rather say nothing at all.
Welcome to the Language Alchemy Podcast, and thank you for joining me today. This is your host, Alejandra, a transformative communication teacher and coach devoted to helping you have more peace and more harmony in all your relationships. In the last episode, we talked about communicating anger skillfully. That was episode 61. And I mentioned that when you are able to communicate anger skillfully, it is because you've been able to receive the gifts of anger. In today's episode, I'll teach you about the gifts of anger and give you some ideas about how to communicate in alignment with those gifts. If you're someone who struggled to communicate anger skillfully, you are in for a treat. Let's begin with a language alchemy foundational understanding. And that is that when you communicate any feeling skillfully, it is because you've been able to connect to its gifts. In the Communicating Feeling podcast series, I taught you that when you are able to tap into your feelings and communicate them, you are able to develop a deeper sense of connection than when you just contact your thoughts and only communicate your thoughts with others. If you haven't checked out the Communicating Feeling podcast series, then listen to episodes 55 through 60. You can find them right there where you are listening to this episode. Now, when you are able to practice language alchemy with your feelings, like the feeling of anger in this case, and you are able to really connect to the sensations in your body and do all the kinds of explorations I guided you through the Communicating Feeling series, then you are able to connect to something deeper than the feeling itself. If we were using the analogy of a tree, your thoughts are the leaves. Your feelings are like the branches that are held by something deeper. The roots of feelings are its gifts. With anger, what we usually find are two gifts. One of these gifts is clarity, something deeper than the feeling of anger that needs to be clearly seen, acknowledged, or heard by you. Sometimes anger is pointing to what your heart is yearning for, such as love, appreciation, collaboration. Other times, you will find that anger is clearly asking you to attend to needs such as respect, equality, consideration, or safety. I noticed that in certain situations when I feel angry, I am longing for reciprocity of care. Yet, some other times when I feel angry, I need space and autonomy. And in other circumstances, I want equality, peace, or an end of suffering for all. Once you become clear about what your needs or values are, you can make conscious decisions to take steps towards fulfilling them. Let me give you an example. Let's say that during these past few years, you have been really committed to understand how you unconsciously perpetuate sexism and racism. So you've been learning more about yourself and how systems of oppression have favored one group of people to the consistent detriment of other groups. You've read books like White Fragility, White Supremacy and Me, Being an Anti-Racist, 4 Days to Change, etc. You've attended workshops and discussions. You've engaged with friends and brought these uncomfortable topics up. And you're feeling pretty aware of your understanding of these realities. And let's also say that as things are opening up, you have signed up for a meditation retreat in person. You go to the meditation retreat, and during the retreat, there's a Q&A session. The teachers asked people to raise their hands so that someone can pass them a microphone and everyone can hear them. As the Q&A session goes on, You recognize that your body giving you the message that you are feeling angry. You noticed that some white folks are standing up to take the mic without raising their hands, while Black folks have had their hands up for some time. And then you've heard one of the teachers answer some questions and making a few comments about being all one, about the need to get over certain things that are bringing us down, the need to get along. And then you hear another teacher say that they're able to teach meditation to everyone because they don't see color. So what do? Do you take the mic and act your anger out and start yelling at everyone at the meditation retreat? Do you stomp out of the Q&A session and recruit participants of color at lunchtime so that they can hear how furious you are? Do you completely shut down while you fume inside and criticize everyone for being clueless and perpetuating pain? If you do any of these things, then you would be reacting to anger. But what if you could do something else instead, such as noticing the sensation of anger rising in your body and then listening to its message with clarity? What if instead you asked yourself something like, I'm feeling angry right now. What is this anger clearly showing me? What need or value of mine do I need to be able to connect with clarity? I bet if you spent even a couple of minutes doing this, you would find your value of reducing harm, bringing awareness, equity, understanding, clear seeing that sometimes we as a human family unconsciously perpetuate inequality and pain, even at a meditation retreat. Now, if you were to anchor yourself in those needs and values, then you could choose to communicate what you've noticed with clarity. Yes. So one of the gifts of anger is clarity. Anger lets you clearly see what's important for you to talk about or what action you need to take. This is the gift of anger because it can connect you to something that's important for you or something valuable you need. The more precisely you know what you need or value, the closer you are to fulfilling it. Now, anger has another gift as well, and that is the gift of strength. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I've supported and continue to support many students and coaching clients who are women in tech. Brilliant women who are working in tech companies and hire me to help them communicate in their industry with greater clarity, confidence, and compassion. A client of mine, a woman in tech, noticed that her male manager was constantly promoting the male members of the team or giving them higher bonuses than the female members of the team were receiving. She also noticed that when the female members of the team asked for a promotion, the manager would suggest that they switched to another team, which was a lateral professional move and not what the women were asking about. My client started paying attention to her body and she recognized she was feeling pretty angry. Anger was not a feeling my client was comfortable with when we started working together. Her experience with anger when she was growing up was pretty much like all I've explained in episode 60. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. During our communication coaching sessions, we worked on understanding the feeling of anger, its messages, and its gifts. We found the gift of clarity, and then we found the second gift of anger, strength. So once my client was able to clearly understand what values matter to her, she was able to connect to a deep sense of strength within her. It is this strength that let her take compassionate action. For her, that included documenting these instances, researching about promotion protocols, learning more about the company's values and promises to employees. And with all this, she was able to have a professional, skillful, and successful discussion with her manager and HR. And now that she got more established in her quality of strength, She joined a group of women leaders in tech who mentor other women in her company. And this is what happens when you are able to connect to strength, the second gift of anger. Now, here's something useful for you to remember. If you still suppress your experience of anger, you will not be able to connect with its gifts. Similarly, if you act your anger out, that is to say, if you react to the anger habitually as you have been doing it before for years or decades, then you will not be able to connect to its gifts. So next time you feel angry, feel the feeling, and then learn to do the alchemical work of distilling anger until you are able to experience either or both gifts of clarity and strength. Now, before we recap what we talked about in this episode, I have something really exciting to tell you. Would you like to know what your most self-sabotaging communication pattern is? If your answer is yes, well, I have created a quiz to help you. I've created this quiz after working with thousands of people's communication, and I bet it will be incredibly useful to you. Take the quiz to uncover which one communication habit of yours blocks you from deep connection, meaningful interactions, and satisfying relationships. So when you're ready, head over to languagealchemy.com/quiz. I will add the link in the show notes. I've been working on this quiz for years, and I am so proud to finally have it for you. So once again, it's languagealchemy.com/quiz. Let's recap what we talked about in this episode. In this episode, I shared with you that when you are able to practice language alchemy with a feeling, you find golden gifts. And if you're able to find its gifts, then you can take compassionate action, like communicating skillfully. In this episode, we uncovered the two gifts anger has for us: clarity and strength. I offered you examples of each and shared how a client was able to communicate anger skillfully. My wish for you is that you start uncovering these gifts whenever you feel angry. And don't forget to take the quiz I made for you. You will find it at languagealchemy.com/quiz. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thanks to all my students and clients who've done the alchemical work of uncovering the gifts of anger. Until next week, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary LaPoe. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.